Hello and welcome to another episode of My Neighbor's Hot Tub. I am your host, Tristen Lee. I just want to say that I'm very excited for today's podcast. I have my friend Alex Shockley with me. Alex Shockley is a fellow musician, thespian. He's, big into producing shows related to theater. And today we get to talk a little bit about his music, because he writes music. His actual name when he's on stage is Alex the Traveler, so go check him out. We talk about his music today. We talk a little bit about my music. We talk about the theater in general, and then we also get to talk a little bit about education. So let's dive in. I hope you enjoy.
I mean, I'm glad you like the album. I hate it.
Really?
I mean, not really, but there's a lot of things. I mean, I put that out in 17, so 5 years ago. I've had a long time to reflect on it and grow since then. So it's just for me as an artist now, I look back on it and see nothing but mistakes, and so it's tough for me to enjoy it.
You know, I can relate with that because I remember looking back on my first album, and it was the same way with me where you move on musically, you maybe still have elements that you like in the music that you make, but you're like, I wanted to change that, or you're always your worst critic, especially.
And on the flip side, I think I'm the best artist today that I've ever been, and I'm always a little bit better. But my biggest criticism of myself was just, I don't know, I didn't really think I put enough time into really crafting the melodies. Mm-hmm. I kind of just sang the melodies by ear. I never really wrote them down or plotted them out on the piano or the guitar. And my lead guitar playing at that point was not very good. But that project to me at the time was just this realization that I could do this.
Yeah.
And I wanted to prove to myself, okay, me by myself, I can play drums, I can play bass, I can play guitar, I can sing. Let's see what I can do.
You kind of did it all yourself, too.
Yeah, I did everything. The album art, I drew that kind of, I ripped off the background, but the spaceship and the letters, I put together the whole thing myself. My buddy Evan helped me record it, who I met in a band called the Dirty Reggae Punks.
I was going to ask you about that. He was part of it. Were you part of it at one point?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if maybe we should go back to the beginning, because you were wanting to ask about Chip, right? Because that's how we met.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how I remember connecting with you, was through Chipman.
Okay, yeah, because so we have a teacher. We have a shared teacher.
Yes.
Right? So I met Jessica. We didn't call her that, and we didn't call her Chip, so it's weird. It's weird for me. At the time, her last name was Lavig, and that's what we called her. Yeah, we called her Lavig. So that's who she was to us at the time. And
and then there was a cat.
Hey, buddy. But she was I met her second year of teaching. Right, she was very young.
Yeah,
and she was ahead of my study hall. She was doing drama. She was an English teacher.
Yes.
The other thing about Chipman that I was always a little jealous of you guys was, you got her post-grad school. We knew her when, second year of teaching. She was an English major, an English teacher. And, she was directing plays and, coaching speech team. And, but it was kind of with us that she fell in love with that. And I think that's why we stayed so close, is because, at a certain point in the process, I decided to study theater myself, and we were both kind of falling in love with that at the same time, and almost because of each other, right? Yeah. Finding this love of telling stories, doing theater, performing, making art. And, it's been fun to see her work grow and her learn and me learn. And I don't know, it's been a fun relationship and a friendship that I've really treasured with Jessica, which I call her now, which is still weird for me. I talk to my friends from high school and they're like, Jessica.
Yeah.
Why would you call her that? You look weird. It's her name's not Lavig anymore, so that doesn't seem right. And I never really attached to Chip. I just can't do it like you guys do, because that's how you knew her.
That's how we knew her.
But, like, so the thing is, like, Sarah Chipman, because, like, she married Jay, right?
Yep.
And, like, his little sister, Sarah, was, like,
I was always wondering what the relation was, because she was also part of 1442, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, she was in theater, and we were really good friends. We were really close. Sarah's an amazing actress.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it totally made sense when we did 1440, which is another thing, because that's really how we met.
Yes.
Was 1440. So Jessica came up, I don't know, we kept wanting to work together again, like after high school. And it was difficult because you move on, and it's like the logistics of doing a play are really difficult. And, the idea that I would be somewhere for like a month, it just didn't really seem feasible. So, like, she came up with this idea of, like, okay, we'll do it in a day.
It seems insane.
It was insane.
It was,
Oh, man, it was insane. 1440, 1,440 minutes. So 7 p.m., like Friday night, right? We have auditions. We kind of organized everybody into groups. And 6 groups, and there were student directors. So we, like, gave each director a couple of actors, and then we stayed up all night and wrote these scripts. Some of them not good. But you pass them off to the student director in the morning, and then they have all day to work it. And it's like, you have to memorize in a day, but it's a 10-minute script. And you got some other kids that are scrounging up costumes and figuring out some light cues. And, and we did it, like, in 7 p.m. later. Like, man, it was exhausting, but we put on a little sketch show that we made out of nothing in 24 hours. Yeah. And that to me was so incredible and so powerful. And, like, it was a testament to, like, okay, if you just set a deadline and work really hard, you can create something.
Absolutely.
And the experience made me want to come here, made me want to, like, start teaching. Because at that point, I was pretty lost, right? Like, I had fallen in love with theater in high school. And I had this family, this team, where we could create things that, like, won awards, and felt like we were great and, like, special and doing something good. And everybody in my life was like, follow your passion. Like, well, this is what I'm enjoying doing. Let's go do more of this. College was interesting. I mean, I made a lot of friends in college and did a lot of really cool things in college, but I felt like the quality of my work wasn't advancing the way I thought it was. Yeah. Or should be. And I mean, ultimately that was on me. And, like, I do feel like for me, a lot of what I learned in college was like, well, you need to put in effort. And it kind of made me like, why am I here then? Like, what do I need all this for? Why am I paying all this money if at the end of the day, my success is dependent on my effort? Like, did you read the book? Read some books, people. Like, that's really all it is. Yes. Yes. And so I don't know, I was a little frustrated, but also I just kind of felt like I didn't challenge myself. Like, I went to a small school because I thought a small school would be better for me. Yeah. Like, as opposed to, like, a conservatory or a big school.
A giant university or something like that.
I mean, I think I was a little ashamed of myself because I was kind of scared to go do that. But in my personal experience, like, when I was a young person, and I went to school in Des Moines, Iowa, to, like, a bigger school with lots of kids in it. I didn't get, I didn't do very well. I was a C student. That mic a little bit. I was like a C student. And when I moved to Algona, Iowa, my dad was in radio. And which is why I thought a podcast would be a good fit for me. Anyway, my dad was a news person in radio, and he moved stations from Des Moines to Algona. And I went with kicking and screaming. I didn't want to live in a small town. I was so mad that I was going from Des Moines, which is like the capital, to, like, Algona, Iowa, which is like 6,000 people in it. Yeah. And but I did a lot better in school. Yeah. Like, I was an A student all of a sudden. And so then I just went into my thinking when I picked a college. I was like, I don't know if a big school is where I'm going to succeed. I don't know if that's what I need. And so I picked a small school, and I was in everything. I remember hearing stories about bigger universities or big schools where, like, a freshman, you're not going to get in anything because you're a freshman. I was like, I was in everything. And I honestly think that was better. I got lots of experience. Yes. And I mean, I did push myself. I did work hard. And so I don't know. But I wasn't surrounded with the type of people that we're going to be like amazing industry connections. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I wasn't as competitive as some of the kids who had gone to conservatories were. Like there have been kids who had gone and really specialized in performance and auditioning, and I got a much more general picture, right?
Sure.
I learned a lot more about stage management and scene construction and light design and directing and which, you know, right out the get-go I resented because, again, I wasn't as competitive. But later in life turned out to be a really good thing.
Yeah.
Because I was able to take opportunities like directing or, you know, for the high school or, you know, even try to produce things on my own, which is really kind of what I like doing and encourage people to do. Because it just, I don't know, right out of college, I got some good jobs. And I got to talk to some people that were in the industry and really like painted a really clear picture for me as to what it was going to be like and what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had to make a choice.
Yeah.
Right? Like, is this what I want? And I had this one job where I was surrounded by these people that were just so petty and like hate, you know, it was just, you know, and I realized how toxic this environment was going to be because it's so competitive. And everybody hates each other because you're desperate for the next job and someone else's success is not yours. It's an opportunity you lost.
It's like a weird competition thing. It's like
and so like there wasn't the teamwork, there wasn't the family,
right?
You know, and you ended up doing projects that weren't good, and you're like, I don't even like this play,
right? And so the joy of doing what you loved wasn't there,
and it really put in perspective, like, oh wow, like I have dedicated my life, I have indebted myself in tens of thousands of dollars. And I really don't have anything else. I don't have any other friendships. I don't have any like possessions. Like I've dedicated my whole life to doing this.
Yeah.
And I don't actually like the people I'm around. I don't actually like the things I'm doing. This is not actually good. I don't like this. And that was a tough point in my life.
Yeah.
I went from having goals and direction to none and aimless. No idea what to do. And 1440 was a nice beacon of light for me. I was like, oh, let's help kids make art. That seems fun.
Right.
I'm going to come here. I'm going to do this. But I learned about myself, though, that wasn't enough. Like, I love teaching. And it does fill my soul, but, like, there's still part of it that's empty, and that part needs to be filled by performing.
Yeah.
Like, I needed a performing outlet.
Yeah.
And open microphone. Like finding a place to go play music every week, that was it. That was what I needed. And it was so much fun. Like, now I had a place to go. I had a reason to practice, a reason to work on new material. And every new song you work on enriches you, makes you more valuable, makes you better at what you do, which builds your confidence. And so, and you know, I kept going. And a couple years later, all of a sudden, you have something. You have a show.
Yeah.
You have something you made that nobody can take away from you.
Yes.
And you can sell.
Yes.
And like that was just great. You know what I mean? And it's like compared to my college experience, like what if I had gone to grad school? You know what I mean? Because that was an option and I thought about it.
Right.
And I auditioned for a program, but because it was free.
Yeah.
But it was also great. I knew those teachers. I had met them while I was working in the field and was like, those are the people I want to learn from. And like, yeah, it was exclusive, and if you either got in or you didn't, and I didn't work hard enough on the audition, and I didn't get in, and I don't know. Again, that seemed like a second in a series of failures, right? Like I had a lot of success, right out the gate.
So
I
this
got
was
a couple of great internships.
You know.
I was working at theaters. I felt like I was getting paid and making plays. I was an actor. I was a professional, and but you know, my contract ran up, and it was, you know, the next opportunity. It didn't really work out. You know, again, I had a really sour experience with like this one play, and I was already kind of on the fence about like, you know, when my contract ran up at the theater, and I realized like, okay, do I want to move to Chicago? Do I want to move to LA? Am I going to New York? Those seem to be my options. I thought about Minneapolis, like, But I don't know. It just felt like playing the lottery. And it felt like a lot of work for free.
Yeah.
Like, you got to build this audition package. You got to stand in line. You got to go to 1 million auditions. A lot of times you're going to get turned down for superficial reasons you can't control. Yeah. And you just got to, like, constantly be good, and then it's still a roll of the dice. And I was just like, that seems dumb.
Right. Like at that point, it could be like another one of those situations where you're really trying really hard to get into a show or into a project, and then you end up just being like, this, it isn't what you think it was, or the people that also got in aren't the kind of company you want to keep necessarily. I don't like. That's a lot of energy with no like personal like joy and reward.
Yeah,
in it.
You're at the mercy of people with money. And that's just never a good place to be. And it also didn't seem unreasonable to create my own opportunities. That just seems like the smarter bet. Like, why couldn't I do that? And why wouldn't I, instead of investing time and energy into auditioning, why wouldn't I just try to produce? And it's not like I don't know how. I know what you need to make a play. I can put this together.
Yes.
And and team building is like essential for like, again, the biggest lesson, right? In high school, I had a strong team. Yes. I don't mean to demean everybody I made plays in college with. There was a lot of talented people I worked with that were fun to work with. Like, I did have a lot of fun, but like, from my perspective, I knew the difference between when it really clicked and when it didn't, and how important that was. And as a producer, then you have control over that.
Yes.
Yes. Sometimes no. I mean, you still got to come up with the money and the funds. And often finding a place, especially for a play, finding a venue, that's the biggest trick.
Yeah.
But it's not an impossible one. And honestly, if you really ask for help, like if you went on Facebook and was like, hey, I'm looking for a place to do a play, I think you'd be surprised how many just offer, like people will just be like, yeah, sure.
Right. And that's where like the community of building people like in your group of individuals like that, that's where like when people go to like university, they make those connections. That's like what a lot of those bigger schools definitely did. But as a person, you can still make those connections just by having your name out there, being part of whatever community you want to do a project in. And people who love what you do and love you will do anything that you can or that they can to help you do those things.
If you're doing something that touches people, reaches that they can support them. I mean, community theaters do that in almost every town. Right? That's right. They come in and they're like, wouldn't it be fun to do this? And, dozens of people get together and be like, yeah, let's make this happen. And so, because it's fun. It is fun. But I think that, because this was my struggle as an actor, right? Acting is fun. Performing is fun. Doing plays is fun. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have value. Right? Like, just because somebody likes acting doesn't mean that there isn't value in what they do.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of times it doesn't get treated that way. Right?
Absolutely.
Like, there's this supply and demand economy of like, this demand by the artists to do what they want to do.
Yes.
And the short end of the stick is the supply of opportunities to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. So I don't know. I loved acting, but it was a bad business. And it wasn't a good product to try to be selling really ever, in my opinion. Some people figure it out. They work the industry. They find those opportunities. But I don't know. I didn't want to do the things you needed to do to be successful. And it's like, do I really want my main focus to be like dieting and working out? And what I mean? Like, maybe not my main thing, but like, a big part of your thing has to be that I gotta look good. I gotta care about my hair and like
I think that's
what I'm wearing.
Yeah. Not that doing those things is like can be beneficial, but like if that's your sole thing, it becomes almost like a vanity thing. It almost, it becomes where that's more of your focus than, like just truly doing something that you enjoy.
My hat's off to those people that do it, because it is a lot of extra work. And honestly, I love movies,
I love movies.
There's a lot of professionals out there in Hollywood that are, I'm not saying that it's stupid to care about those things, because obviously it's nice when there's like a pretty actor like doing a good job in a movie. Yeah. But like me personally, I didn't want to have to care about
that wasn't the vision that you had for where you're just like,
you know, because I also felt like just, I guess my philosophy lately has been to just try to be genuine.
Yes.
To have an authenticity. And part of that comes from, like, my dad died from cancer in 2020. I mean, I knew, it kind of unrelated to COVID. I mean, he had cancer before that. But, like, we did a podcast before he died. And one of the things he said to me about what he was proud about his life work was, okay, so he told me this story where he bumped into like his old social studies teacher from like high school or whatever, and he'd been on the radio, and then the teacher was complimenting him about how nice it was to hear him on the radio, and it was like he had a friend on the radio. And my dad said to himself, "I've always prided myself on being genuine."
Yes.
And so I don't know, that stuck with me, and I think that's kind of just my goal is to bring that quality to my art and what I do.
Just being genuine in like your approach with whatever you do, whether it's
I'm doing,
music or
I don't
theater
care
or teaching
what my hair
or whatever
looks
it is.
like, really.
No,
I cut it weird.
Superficial.
I cut it weird because I think it will get attention, right? And I'm trying to be good at marketing, but I don't really care. I don't really care about clothes. I don't really care if I'm cut. Like, what I do care about is kindness.
Yeah.
What I care about is respect. What I care about is empathy.
You'd rather dedicate that energy towards who you are rather than like the what you look like.
I mean, as long as it's reasonably healthy. I mean, hygiene's important. But
right.
Taking care of yourself is important.
Right.
But like, you don't
give a fuck about the clothes and like,
are they wearing the right sunglasses?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Are
they Ray-Bans or are they like Walmart brand? Who gives a fuck?
Yeah, I don't. I really don't.
Stupid.
And I don't think that people who do are spending their energy in the right ways. But I do think that that's a necessary part of succeeding in Hollywood or Broadway. And so for me, it was like, I don't want to do that.
No.
And I think for people that don't want to do that, that doesn't mean you can't make art in theater. And I mean, but I don't know, like, my success in my, like, more recent years has been realizing that going off the beaten path and doing things my own way and being, like, okay with that, not ashamed of that, is what's made me happy and made me feel successful. So, I don't know, just, you can create your own opportunity. You can make art anywhere. Like, you know what I mean? And you don't even really need, I mean, I think you do need an education, but I don't think you need to pay a lot of money for it. Like, you do need to listen, you need to find mentors, you do need to seek out information, you need to be critical of yourself.
Yes.
And
you're saying it in the way of, like, you don't always need to go to, like, university. You don't always need to, like...
And not that it's bad to have a teacher. It's, honestly, I loved college. College was great. There's nothing wrong with what college was, but, like, it's the same with, like, healthcare in this country. Like, there's an economy of you need this, and we control this, and you have to pay us a lot of money, and it's a bunch of nonsense. And it's not really the fault of the professors at the universities who are just there, also not making very much money, by the way, and like just trying to teach kids how to be better humans. I honestly don't understand why that like is not more of an occupation. Like academia seems like this really like ethereal, faraway thing that like the idea of being a scientist is like, whoa, man, like, I couldn't be a scientist. And it's like, you are a scientist. You do science every day. Yes. You know what I mean?
There's someone who quoted where they're saying like the best kids or the best scientists were like kids just because of their pure innocence and their curiosity of just like, what is this and why does this do this, or why does, like, when you hit a pot, why does that make a sound, or why does the sky turn blue but then red at night, or like all these different things, because they're so inquisitive. And that's the scientific mentality. You don't have to be this idea of like scientists, it's like they're all separate from us.
Yeah, this
it's like
published. I wrote this paper.
It's very much incorrect.
That's important, right? It's important to have like the peer review process. It's important to but I'm just saying that like you got a lot of people doing a lot of what I think are pointless things, like trading stocks. And like working at banks. I mean, I've done a lot of jobs in my life, and I've seen some real waste of human energy. Like it's like right after I abandoned my I'm gonna be an actor thing. I didn't know what to do. I moved back to Des Moines. I moved in with some friends. I started working temp jobs, and I started working for banks because Des Moines is filled with like banks and insurance companies. That's what you do there.
Much like Alexandria.
Everywhere, dude. There's so many banks. Yeah, but whatever. But like, I remember like there's this one job I had where it was an image processing center. So like these mortgages would go through, and then they would scan, like they'd send the documents to this place and they'd get scanned, and then they would send the images to somebody at a computer, and that person would be like, oh, that's a tax return. You punch a little code. And basically you're a professional labeler. You're labeling these documents so when they go into the database or whatever, and then you open up the file, you can see like, oh, here's all these tick marks of like, this is what this document is, and you can click on that image to look at it. So most of the time, probably nobody's even looking at these mortgages after the money's like, okay, this is our record of it, but nobody's going to look at it anyway. Doesn't really matter. And also, they have an AI that could do it. Like they didn't need humans, and the AI would correct you if you were wrong.
Yeah.
Like,
it's sad, but like there's just a lot of mind-numbing tasks that
it's like, why are we filling these warehouses of people? The electricity we're spending to power these computers. You just waste. It's just wasteful, and I mean, you're doing it to justify to the city of Des Moines that you should deserve to be a business, even though like they're also doing. Like, let's not get into another podcast of the criminal things that banks are doing. But anyway, my point is, why isn't art? Why isn't academia? Like, why does college cost so much? Why aren't we providing that opportunity for our citizens? Like, if we have the resources to fill a warehouse full of people to sit at computers and mindlessly label documents that don't even really need to be labeled. Yeah. Why can't we just let them go to school? That's my point.
Your time is better served at
the community. Our society would be better served by a more educated populace.
Yes.
Why then do we create these barriers?
Yeah,
the answer is money, right? The administrations of schools are making boatloads of money because they have a deal with the politicians. Students are becoming indebted to the government. They have to pay interest rates on these loans that they, quote, need. And the schools are profiting. The politicians are profiting. The only people that could stop this, right? The only people that could lower the price of school are either the government or the schools. And why would they? They're making so much money. Like, they have no reason to.
Right. It's a bunch of like fucking loopholes and brick walls and all this shit that you like run into just to try and like accomplish a task. Like, if you had to, I'll just break it down to something simple. If you had to like wipe your ass, but you had to get like an approval to wipe your ass, and then you had to like, I'm saying like every time you go to wipe your ass, you have to go all the way to the store to get a roll of toilet paper that may or may not be there, just to come back home and take a fucking shit. I'm describing Urinetown. I'm basically describing Urinetown.
I was in that.
Yeah,
that was a great script.
That was a great script. I fucking but like, that's the thing, and that's where it's like moving to. You're like, okay, I have this thing that I want to do. I want to go learn about fill in the blank, but you have so much bullshit and bureaucracy that you have to run through to be able to do it. I understand why people are like, you know what? It's really not worth the fucking headache.
And I don't think school is inherently bad. I think
education is not bad.
I think school would be great, and we should have more school. People should go to school. Yeah. What we need to stop trying to take advantage of people.
Yes.
We should stop trying to rule through fear. Like, you need
like this. If you don't do this, you're gonna fucking be a loser.
If you don't have healthcare, you're gonna die.
Right.
If you don't have education, you're gonna be.
Everyone dies. Coming from someone who's a nurse, I can tell you, and it's not shitting on healthcare because
from someone who actually works in it, I can tell you there are many places where I scratch my head every day and go, really? Something as simple as like someone trying to get a medication after they leave the hospital. Like they're well enough to where they can go home, but they have this medication that they need.
Mm-hmm.
It's too late for lifestyle changes. It's too late for that, but they need this medication. But they can't get it because their insurance company says, fuck you, we're not going to pay for it. You're going to get an off-brand one that doesn't work. Or you're just going to have to pay out of pocket. So you've worked your whole life, you've slaved your whole life away doing whatever you've done to just be able to afford to live another couple of weeks and then die. Like, it seems so, like, the healthcare, the care part is not in there. It's not part of the equation. It's not the forefront of what it ought to be.
I mean, I do think that there are nurses, right, and doctors.
Yeah, they give a shit.
That do care. I'm not gonna. I think that it's important to at least recognize that there are healthcare professionals that got in there because they are trying to help and that they do care. Yeah. But the people that are running the show, the people that have the control of the situation, are the people with money.
Insurance companies,
pharmaceutical companies. I mean, hospital. I mean, it takes a lot of money to run a hospital. I mean,
it does, yeah.
And it's just a problem we have right now where people that are in charge of money start to think in terms of money, and it dehumanizes their perspective, and they lose touch with what the real point was.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know, that's just something that humanity is going to have to figure out. Like, in the way that we've been struggling to figure out, it doesn't matter what skin color it is. I mean, It's just a thing humans are working on. I feel like this is another one of them things.
Yes. It's just relearning how we ought to treat one another.
That kindness does matter. And that you shouldn't be selfish. You shouldn't be greedy. Yes. That money isn't even a real thing. I mean, even Adam Smith said that money should not be a commodity unto itself. Money was supposed to make things more convenient. Like, instead of hauling all my coal around, I can just write a piece of paper and we can trust each other.
Yeah, of exchange.
But like, once you start having money as like a commodity,
you're just like Scrooge McDuck, just like.
Well, the problem is you take money.
Yeah.
And you turn it into more money somehow. Money was already this like magical, imaginary thing.
It blows my fucking mind.
You took something that didn't exist and made more of something that didn't exist, and somehow you're contributing. I don't think so.
I'm big into. Here's this funny. And so all these elements that we're describing, you do talk about and sing about and write about, and I did pick up on that in your music.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that. I was just like, this dude's fucking on it. He understands. But like, it is so funny because this idea of inflated and created value. Like, I like real estate. I'm fascinated by the aspects of it where you're like, okay, you have this piece of property. Here's what it all entails. But at some point, like what's going on now in the market where you've got houses selling for tens of thousands of dollars more than what they're actually worth, simply because fear, simply because there's lack of places, because a lot of these big ass corporations are buying up massive amounts of houses all throughout the country, so there's less for other people to be able to have.
Yeah,
it's a greed thing, and it's
happened many times.
It's happened many times.
That's what's so funny. Is this like there's a cycle? There's a cycle of dumb things that just keep happening.
History repeats.
Humans are slow learners, man. I don't know what to tell you. And like the thing is, with the problems stem from the fact that for a minority of people, there is a benefit to these stupid things. And that minority becomes more and more capable of controlling the situation. So, I mean, I don't know, like, what's troubling, I think, now is that people, like, they've marketed this, like, oligarchy as democracy. Right?
Yeah,
people think that they have more freedom than they do. And it's so funny because you see these people that defend the government are the ones that are like, they're not going to take away my freedom. And it's like,
it's already gone.
It's like, oh, you fool.
If you only understood and if you only knew.
But I don't know. I think that America's a big place.
Yes.
Full of a diverse group of people who are fiercely proud of who they are, and
fiercely individual.
Yeah, I don't think that, there's other countries in the world where I think they have started thinking different ways, and it's gonna. What's so weird about humans? We don't live that long. I mean, we live kind of long, but like we don't live that long. Like real substantial change is happening. I honestly am pretty as critical as I am of a lot of things.
Yes,
I think that things are moving in a good direction. I mean, environmentally, there are some strong concerns. Good luck, kids.
Yeah.
Oh, God. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of fat people that ate a lot of food and cut down a lot of trees.
Yeah.
And there's a strong potential that a lot of people are going to die. Sorry about that. But
I see it every day.
But life will go on. Yeah. I do believe that. And I do think that, I mean, it's sad, but and I wish it not, but it's just too late. Like, I don't know. Maybe it'll be fine. I don't know. I'm not that well educated to be able to figure out, like, how much food we can really make. And I mean, there's a lot of information that you just don't know what to trust anymore. So it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard.
It can be so overwhelming, but the idea is you got to keep that, and that's like a straight head about it, or you just gotta fucking just nose to the grindstone. You just fucking
do your best.
Do your best.
Do your best for yourself and for everybody around you, and try to be kind. Try to think of others. I mean, that's my best advice. Who knows what's going to happen? But life is hard, and be kind. Right. But that's one of the things I love about music.
Yes,
is that there's so many resources you just can trust. That are you try things and it's inarguably like something you wanted to learn, or like, right. I mean, even if it's like, oh well, those lyrics aren't right, but like whatever, man, I know I can sing now. Like, it's been something I've been able
instant feedback.
It's been something I've been able to trust. Yes. The energy you put into researching music gives back. Yes. And that's why I do it, and that's why I like performing. Like I said, it gives back. You know, and like your album is a lot about love, right? Like, I love your album in the way that it tells a story that makes sense. Like, from the title of the album, A Life Worth Living, it's like, yep, that's what this album is about. Like, what is a life worth living? And it is very heartfelt. And I kind of got lost as to why I brought this up. But I'll just kind of kick into some of my thoughts about it, because I didn't want to just talk about it. I think my biggest compliment is just the melodies are so strong and fun to listen to, and it really sells the boldness of the simplicity. You know what I mean? Like, I'm listening to this album and I'm like, oh, this is just really him and his guitar. I mean, not really, that's an oversimplification, but like, at its core, that's really what it's about. I mean, there's no vocal harmonies.
No, I shit you not, dude. And for those who haven't listened to it, most of it is like me and guitar, and then like there's obviously like little bits of like reverb, or like, just making the sound.
Was there like real cello, or did you just use like synthesized?
So no, there wasn't real cello. So I want to say the real instruments that were in it were obviously my voice, my guitar, and then I was able to, with the guy who helped me record it, his name was Max Cushaw, and he actually went to school up at MSUM. I met him through a friend. He went to school for music production and entertainment industry and technology, and he was the one who kind of got me to like understand the ins and outs of recording. Because you, as a songwriter, you're like, I just sit down with whatever instrument or instruments that I know, and I just plunk out a song or a melody, or like you have melodies in your head, and then you're like, okay, that sounds good with these chords or with these notes, and that's well. And then there's the whole side of recording it and translating that into what's in my head to what goes into your ears or the people's ears. Mm-hmm. And that's where I really that's where the learning came in. So, but I was like, okay, I want like these sounds, because that's as close as it could be to what I wanted to portray. So like there were elements of like, I want it to feel like you're in a space, like, in a room. Some of it's like really spacey, or some of it's just very like plain, acoustic guitar and voice, very folky, that's how I basically said what it was.
But it still felt full to me.
Right.
Like the strumming of the guitar really fills out the groove of the rhythm section. I mean, there's leads sometimes, which kind of add a little counterpoint.
Yes.
And I mean, I felt like the consistency of the tone was just really fun to listen to as an album. Like, I mean, not that there wasn't some variety. I mean, I push for a lot of variety. I think variety is good, but like I do think sometimes as an album should have a sort of cohesive tone, right? Or like, and I thought it did, and I thought the story of the album was just kind of like the lyrics were clear, but but not like poetic, but not too complicated and relatable.
Yes,
and yeah, I mean, by the time I got to the last song, though, there was a huge payoff. Because, like, by the time I got to The Secret and those, like, bongos or, like, djembe, I was like, some percussion. And I was like, excited about it. And it really brightened up the end of the album because it was like, I don't know, this thing that hadn't been there before. And so I thought that because you knew it was simple, you were delicate with the flavors that you added, which was appropriate because it was well seasoned, I guess, in that way.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
But like, I don't know. I did have some questions I thought were interesting.
Yeah, dude. Lay them on me.
Because so from the get go, right? A life where, or I don't want to go, which I thought had the best chorus, like the catchiest chorus, like it gets stuck in my head. But like, there's this like antithesis of I don't want to go, but I can't wait to be up in heaven. And I just felt that pairing to be kind of interesting. And I wonder if that was on purpose or if it's something that you reflected on later or you noticed that maybe there was like a clash of like ideas there.
It's interesting. Without trying to sound too artsy smartsy, like I wrote, that was the first song I ever wrote. And it was a song I wrote at my grandfather's funeral. Like I couldn't be in the room with any of the people anymore. Like it wasn't just because it was sad. It's just like it just wasn't a place I wanted to be. This is my dad's dad, and I just didn't want to be there. And so I went into this family room. It's just like a kind of like a kitchenette, and I just sat there and I asked my mother. I was like, "Hey, Mom, you have a piece of paper?" Like it's just whatever we were listening to at music at that time. There was something that just clicked in my head, and I just started writing down like words that I thought that really kind of stuck with me. Were like all the themes behind it were just like you've got people dying. I talk about that. I see people dying, and like I hated what I wrote initially. Like I wrote it all down just to like get it out of my head so I would stop thinking about it, and then I gave it to my mom. I'm like, "Hey, Mom, can you just throw this away?" Like I just needed to get it out. And she held on to it for years. She held on to it. And then like 7 years or more after my grandfather passed, she like, "Hey, I found this." And I was like, "Oh, fuck." And I still remembered the melodies.
That's crazy.
It was wild. I still remembered the melodies, and I was more musically literate at that time. So I'm like, I could translate this onto guitar. Like I remembered how it all went. And so I was able to like write it out and actually put it as a song. But for me, it was... it was the idea that like those two very different things, life and death, they're not mutually exclusive, and they're one and together. And the whole thought was, I don't want to go, I don't want to die, but I know that I'm gonna be there anyways. I'm gonna go there anyways. Whether I don't subscribe to any particular faith idea, but I know that I don't want to go yet. There's a lot I have yet to share. There's a lot I have left to learn, a lot I have left to do, but I can't wait. And like right now I'm working on a song, and I'm working on a project, and one of the songs that I'm currently working on is called "A Room with a View." You know, it's the idea behind the song is it's like getting to that place, that ultimate place. I'm not talking about heaven, and I'm not talking about like euphoria from like a heroin shot that just felt so fucking good. I'm talking about like just to that place where you're just like, like, yes, like this is where I want to be. You know, whether it's like you've achieved a goal, or you've, you know, gotten to, you know, experience, you know, things, or it's like literally like, you know, a room with a view. You're just, you know, something that's very simplistic.
You're enjoying life.
You're just like, I like this. This is nice.
I mean, to me, it made sense. Like,
So
I kind of knew what you were saying, right?
Yeah.
That even though, like, I'm not in a hurry, but I am looking forward to this.
Yes.
It seemed like kind of what you were saying.
Yes.
But, like, I don't know. I just thought if
I
maybe
wrote it when I was like 10 or 7 or something like that. I was really young.
But, I mean, I don't know. To me, I liked it because, I mean, I think that is, like you said, how somebody probably would say it. And life is full of these interesting contradictions. But, like, you know, that's why I wanted to bring it up. Is if I wondered if it was something you had thought about in retrospect. Like, he's like, well, you can't wait. You clearly want to wait.
Yeah. Like, it's like, I don't want to go.
That idea of, like, wrestling with the acceptance of your mortality, I hadn't really thought about that. That it's actually you accepting the fact that you, like, oh, yeah, I realize, like, your grandfather died, and I'm facing a fact about even myself that eventually I'm gonna die, and finding peace. I hadn't really thought of that, so that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Okay, A Life Worth Living, the album title song. My main question about this kind of leads me out of order a little bit because it makes me want to talk about which one was it? The one with the other artist. Love Never Dies.
Oh yeah,
because that was the one that you, like, kind of released as a single, was Love Never Dies.
Yeah,
and it was the one that the only one that had, like, another person listed as, like, the artist.
Yes.
And was he singing?
Yes, he was singing.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I guess, my question was, like, why was the single not the title track of the album, and why was the single the only song that you don't sing?
So there's a couple of reasons why. So the artist that I featured on there, his name was Taylor Schatz, and he's an actor, and, you know, and stuff like that, and he's a musician himself. And
he was great.
He's excellent. He's absolutely excellent. And the how that song came out was we were doing a movie, and it was a little short film with my buddy Sean Rice, who you know his sister Olivia. They all graduated from Alec, but he goes to MSUM, and they were doing a short film, and the idea was it was about this folk singer who had a one-hit wonder, which was that song "Love Never Dies," and he only played a 5-string guitar. And he was given an interview with like a TV host or personality, and this TV host was just basically saying, folk songs are dead, this thing's bullshit, whatever. And so this character that Taylor plays gets mad, hits him in the face with a guitar, goes to jail for some time. It was a fun mockumentary.
That's fun. Yeah.
And then so he wrote this song, or like that was the song that blew up. And then so I had wrote it. To me, it was very superficial. Like, I like the song, I still like it. It's very catchy, but it was very superficial. It was like a snapshot of like what was going on in my life at that time. You know, it was like this torn feeling between, like, you know, it starts off, you know, if you're just, it's kind of, you're just floating through life. It's like I'm this, but without music. I'm not this, you know. A sailor without the ocean is like incomplete. It's these all these different things. So it was what motivated me is like love, the love of music, the love of a person, the love of this.
And that is very clearly the story of the album. That what is a life worth living? A life in the pursuit of love. Or,
Which, could be a person, could be something that you love to do. Like, that's the motivating force for it. That's what it is. But the reason why I chose to have Taylor do it is because we wanted it recorded for
the
movie. Because at the end, during the credits, like, that's the song that plays. And I really liked his voice for it. Because I had tried it, like, after, we had gotten it just for the movie, I went back and worked with Max. We got it a little more tuned up, music-wise, to the way I wanted it to sound. And it's the music, the guitar was probably one of my favorite parts on the album itself. But I just was like, you know what? I fucking just like the way Taylor's voice sounds. And a little bit is I was still very shy as an artist to just put my voice out there.
I thought you sang your pants off on this album. I was really impressed.
I appreciate that very much.
Because for a while, me vocally, I was really always trying to be more rock and roll.
I fucking loved your album.
Thank you, man. But I recently, more and more lately, I've embraced the things that, like, my choir teacher would tell me, and, like, just trying to sing properly.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, live streaming helped with me with that a lot, because all of a sudden I was recording myself, like, every day and listening to myself every day, and I was like, ugh. And
sometimes that's the best education. You're just like, okay.
And I started leaning more into how I should be doing things and being okay with how it sounds, and I do think it sounds better that way. And that's why I was like, no, like, he's doing it right. Like, he's got a good tone. And it's because, again, like, you need that melody, because the arrangement is so sparse in that vocal line that I thought you did a great job. I mean, so no, I think you should be super proud of your voice and your vocal performance on this album.
Thank you.
50 Matches is probably my favorite song on the album.
I fucking love that one, dude. Me personally,
that line, like, striking 50 matches couldn't keep you warm. I was like, that's so clever. Because, I mean, it's definitely the kickoff of your search, right, for love.
Yeah.
Like, there's this image in my mind when you say 50 matches, it takes me to, like, an online dating situation.
Very much so.
But then also just to also play off the double meaning of matches, but in, like, a cool way. Like, it was such a beautiful image of, like, striking 50 matches, but you couldn't keep you warm. And I was like, that, I don't know, that was just my favorite lyric probably in the album. And
I would be remiss if I didn't say that I had a person help me write that. Like, I had the music down and then I had some lyrics for it, but her name was Mariah. She had helped me that, and that was an element that she brought into it.
That was a great metaphor. I loved it.
And I was absolutely blown away by it. And I was like, I said, can I borrow that? She's like, yeah, just, shout out credit. So shout out to Mariah for giving me that. I fucking love that song.
I feel like it was like, finally we were getting a little bit more, like, the melodies on, like, the seventh of the chord a little bit more. So it had, like, a more, like, even though it seemed like you were singing about things that were like, oh, this is going to be good, you could tell, like, oh, this is not good. Like, And I don't know, I just felt like the structure of the song was a little bit more interesting. Like, it ended on more of, like, an instrumental, which was, like, begged you, like, what's going to happen next? And then it leads into an instrumental. Which I was, again, unexpecting, because I was like, man, there's a lot more guitar in this one than usual. And I was waiting for the vocals, and I'm like, the vocals never came. And I was like, that was cool. And I guess, like, it's kind of telling that story of, like, oh, like, things are just, that's life sometimes, right? A beautiful nightmare. They're like, oh, it's, I hate this, but I love it.
No, with 50 matches, like, that was one that structurally, like, I think we started recording later. So by this time, like, in the recording process, like, I had it written, I had all the melodies that I wanted, and then some. And then I was like, okay, I think this is how the structure ought to be. So you, like, start off, you hear the artist, 50 matches in the dark. Light one, just, for a spark. But then, you have that whole like slow burn of like time where it just seems like the music goes on. You're like, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen?
Which makes sense because it's like, that's where the character is. Like, they started this journey, this search, and it's like, that's what you're doing. You're just looking through the world, trying to find that thing that you're looking for, and it reminds me of that period that I talked about in between coming to Alexandria and like just sort of like leaving theater and although mine, I don't feel like I've never used the word beautiful to describe it. I mean, it was interesting, fun, wild, but no, like just a journey of searching. Definitely, I feel like strikes home when you listen to that part of the album, and then you lead into Juliet. And Juliet was interesting in a couple of ways. At first, like all of a sudden,
I hated my voice in that song.
I know.
I tried changing keys a few different times, up and down, just to try and find something. And I was just like, man.
All of a sudden, we're jumping into 3/4.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay, we're doing a waltz. Yeah. And I mean, I liked it. It was romantic. Like, you are. It's because it's like. It does remind me, like, we're at the ball. I found my love. Yeah. Like, but I wondered, because, like, a song like that, you could really pick any name, right?
Yeah.
Why Juliet?
I had for me, it was a little bit of the reminiscing of, like, just my theater, because I wouldn't be who I am without my theater. I really felt, like, compelled by a lot of what Shakespeare had done, and like I don't know his works as well as some would, but I really liked Romeo and Juliet. I really was like very captivated by the way he would use language, even though it seems so foreign to us now because it was written hundreds of years ago. I loved the poeticness of it, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, like to me that felt like a name that you would know, and that's where that like hyperlink or that connection would be made. Through the song. Like the song, I really like the song as a story. Where it's like from like the beginning of like you kind of like meet someone, and it to me, I still think even the way it turned out was like it was just fine because it's like this guy, he's just like you're full, like you could feel it in like the bubbliness of like
exactly. It was a dance. It was a romp.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like when you say Juliet, I knew exactly who this girl was.
You know what the elements that are all encapsulated in that.
Yeah,
Without the tragic ending. Spoiler alert: they all die.
There's a few left. Yeah, I think Friar Lawrence is still there.
Yes.
Anyway, but that leads into another instrumental, and that one, because like, okay, so like Juliet ends, and you almost have this reference to death, like, when I'm old and about to die, kiss me then, or whatever, and then you lead into Fly, which is another solo, and I'm like, did he die? Is he dead now? What was Fly to you?
So originally I had that was another one of the very first songs I had wrote was Fly, and it was I had lyrics for it and everything, but then the way that it turned out during the recording process, I'm like, no. Like it doesn't need the lyrics. I need it to just be this the way it is. But like I had written it because I remembered, I think I had a friend of mine, her grandmother or grandfather had just passed away, and I remembered how she felt when they had passed away, and it brought me back to when I had written the first song about my grandfather during that time, and he passed away, and I wanted to write something like that, like she was really depressed about it, and she was really bummed out about it. So it was the idea of like you wanted nothing more than to provide comfort, but sometimes you didn't really know how to say it, which is why I ended up not choosing to put lyrics in. You know,
I mean, that makes a lot of sense because I feel like, yes, sometimes in those situations, right?
What can you say?
The best comfort isn't words. It's like just your presence,
Yeah.
right? Like, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, in some cultural traditions, right? Like that's what you like my wife's telling me about, like, you know, traditions in Puerto Rico and how people for a week or whatever they'll just sit and like do the rosary, and it's that time. You know, it's not a thing. It's not a word. Sometimes just energy and time is the greatest gift.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. I mean, okay, so Savior.
Oh shit.
Savior's a fun one.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, it's like, okay, so like I'm like, okay, so he's still alive. Okay, so it didn't go well. Juliet didn't work out, but like clear. So like Fly was like things going bad, and all of a sudden like, okay, so things aren't working out between him and Juliet. That's a bummer. But it did beg the question. Right? You say like you can't be a savior, and it begged the question, why not? And it also made me wonder, because you're a nurse.
Yeah.
Like, and like we're leading into like lesson learned, right? Was it about one person, or was it about just not being able to save everyone?
Savior and lesson learned were very closely related. Like, they were written about a person and a situation, you know. But for me, the feeling that I had behind Savior was like I was deeply, deeply in love with this person. You know, like, weirdly enough, how you tail off of Juliet, where you just obviously didn't go well. You know, sometimes you got to let the bird fly. Sometimes things, they just don't work out and whatever. But I was going through nursing school, and I just was like, this is it. I'm just going to focus on this, getting through school and just getting it done. And I'm not going to worry about relationship. I'm not going to worry about anything else, because this is my focus. This is my goal. And through that, I had met someone who was going to nursing school as well. And I fell deeply, deeply in love with this person, rightly or wrongly. And I knew, because we are very complex individuals, that sometimes there's aspects of each other's personality that you can't help, or you can't change. It's something that they either have to do themselves, or it's something that, you know, you have to just either cope with and just make peace with. And so with that particular situation, it was, though I cared and I loved this person very, very much, and everything that she was, there was just some things I couldn't help.
Did you really love that? If you felt like you needed to save them, is that really love?
And that's the thing. And that's the thing that in the song they realize. Like, I say it in there, like, I want to save, I want to be your save. And at some point in the relationship, I had to be like, why am I trying to do that?
Yeah.
I should like this person for the way they are. I shouldn't try to like change this person or fix this person, even though they were going through a whole situation themselves. I shouldn't have been any way influencing or like a driving force in trying to, you know, be the knight in shining armor riding in on a white horse. Fuck that.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
I mean, it depends on the problem, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. You know, there's some things you can control and some things you can't, which is kind of the overarching lesson, right? That you're talking about. Like, I can't save things that I can't control. Like, you can't, like, if somebody has, you're right, there's some problems that people just have to take accountability for themselves. But, like, you know, sometimes you can show pizza. Sometimes you can fix the sink, and you know what I mean?
And to that nature, like, I kind of allude to that, where it's like, I love you the best that I can, you know, but I can't be your savior, and that's a personal realization, you know.
Support versus saving,
you know, love versus trying to fix everything,
you
know, all the time. So that that was something that I definitely realized. And then lesson learned was about, it was reflecting at the end of this relationship. So Savior was like during it and kind of towards the end. And then lesson learned was like, a few months after, where I was just like, yeah, that was probably not a situation that I should have dug so deeply into. And, I have no negative feelings towards that person. Didn't at that time, still don't. But because of that situation, there were aspects of my personality I realized that I would have never thought of otherwise. I never ever I didn't want to be in a relationship at the beginning. I didn't want, going into school. I didn't even like the idea of thinking about, being a husband or having kids or anything. But then this person plops into your life. Didn't ask for it, but like plops into your life and brings out parts of you that you're like, oh shit, I could see myself as a husband. I could see myself as a father. I could see myself in a light that I would have never before, which still goes back to the theme of the album, where it's like there's a lot of things in life which makes life worth living, even the tough, shitty parts.
Taking on challenges.
It's taking on that growth in those couple of songs and in that period of time where you're just like, oh shit, okay.
Well, that is a cool perspective, because the next song, I almost felt like the album kind of ended on like a downer. Like I said, it was bright. I like the percussion, but like there's this idea that you can't trust yourself in The Secret. Because the lyric we say, you can't trust yourself. And I kind of related. I remember being young and in love and realizing like kind of the same thing that you were talking about in the album. That like, was I? What? Yeah. I thought I was, but I might have been wrong. And so I get that like, okay, can I trust myself? But like, it seems like you should be able to, right? And if you've learned your lesson, like, shouldn't we still try? I don't know. Like, what do you mean by you can't trust yourself? Do you still feel that way?
No. So that song, it was an interesting one to end on, because it was another one of the really early songs that I'd written. Like, this was years and years and years before I even recorded an album, even thought about it. These are like old songs. So the idea of like the secret was like just me being able to share music and share those experiences with me. So like I talked about, even like with Love Never Dies, up until when I started recording, I wasn't comfortable sharing my music because I didn't feel like someone wanted to hear it. I didn't feel like I was very good. And then the secret, because it was such an old song, it took on new meaning when I actually sat down to like record it, where I was like, oh shit. So it's like I've got all these experiences and these thoughts, philosophies, these ideas, but it was kind of like a like me confiding in my guitar. Like, I always felt more comfortable behind my guitar, and I could tell all these secrets to my guitar. And then it was finally like, I could take this. It's like, I have an ocean to sail across the ocean. You can come along.
I can't trust myself in the sense that like I'll tell myself no. Don't trust. Like, allow myself to do it despite my doubts. That's cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
And using the medium of music to be able to share this, like, because again, there were things in there, like the last couple of songs we talked about, like Lesson Learned and Savior. There were some things in there that I was very ashamed, and just in my life, just the things that happened that I was like, I don't know how to just talk about this. So that was a medium of being able to share it. Eventually in life, I actually did become comfortable with, talking about it and talking about it with people, because I felt like, man, I really fucked some shit up, but things do work out and things are okay. But I was like, okay, I could, this is like my therapy, And even in like one of the other songs, I think it was lesson learned. This is my therapy. This is the way that I can deal with what I think and what I feel is by writing it in music and sharing it.
Thank you again so much for everyone listening. I just wanted to say this podcast will be split into 2 parts. So this will be the first part, and then next week we will finish our conversation with Alex Shockley. So stay tuned, and thank you again very much.